Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Am Christina DiArcangelo. And today with me is one of my not only colleagues, but also one of my friends, Jose. Jose, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me, Christina. It's an absolute pleasure. My name is Jose Ramon Riestra. I am originally from the Canary Islands, which is something you're not going to hear very often. You can tell we don't like to leave. We live very well over there, but through my dad's career, we lived all over the world, grew up a lot of it in the States, bouncing around. And then through my own career, I worked at Procter & Gamble in the pharma space and GlaxoSmithKline. And then now I am in Florida running my own business in the property management and community management space. And it's been an absolute wild ride because I've managed to do all of that. And I just turned 35. So it's been a hell of a ride already.
Congratulations. And you know what? Not only has it been a hell of a ride because you're only 35, but also you got stuck in COVID with all this stuff when everything was imploding and people are moving out. And guess what? Now we don't need office space anymore because we could just work from home. I mean, it was a disaster. How did you manage all that? Because that's high pressure. And, you know, you also have a family to support. It's not just you. It's not like you're all by yourself. You've got a lot at stake.
You know, I love that you bring it up because I got a very unique perspective that probably 99.9% people didn't really get, which is in my business because we oversee the communities, like for example, your HOA, your condo, etc. I know it. I'm way too likable to be the bad guy sending you a violation, but somebody has to do it. And so I got to see everybody shut in, right? So we oversee about somewhere between 37, 42,000 doors in Florida. And all of a sudden, it's like overnight, oh my, all of our homeowners are now home 24/7. And at the same time, our offices are closed. I'm locked up at home. I literally look at every time I come out of the house, I look like one of the security monsters from Monsters Inc., you know, completely wrapped up to go anywhere because we didn't know nobody understood what was going on. And it was very curious because all of a sudden, where I thought that we would get extremely bounded down at the beginning was extremely quiet because everybody kind of kept to themselves and so on. But about 2 weeks in, then all of a sudden it was hell on wheels, right? Because now everybody was bored of being at home and they started walking around their neighborhoods and pointing out everything they didn't like about their neighbors. So I had the added complexity of being at home, trying to figure out how to work and figure out how do I get my whole organization, because we're still growing at the time. And we were probably 47, 54 employees total. And it's like, all right, how do I train these people to work at home, figure out what needs to do, still be able to function? We had just literally 2 weeks prior activated our VoIP system. So it was like, how do I get my whole team fully operational when most of these people don't know what it's like to even own a laptop? So it was a hell of an experience and extremely, extremely rewarding now looking back at it, how much of a learning challenge it was.
Yeah, you know, I'm giggling because I too live in an HOA environment.
Mm-hmm.
And everything shut down in our community. So the pool shut down, obviously, the basketball hoops, you know, the basketball spaces, they took the hoops off. So you could no longer play basketball, but still you could still play. But anyway, tennis courts, couldn't do any more tennis. Like it was like a disaster. So then they allowed us to be able to put like small pools
in your front yard.
Yeah. So then, you know, now everybody has pools and you're right. Everybody's outside. Then people weren't social distancing either when they were supposed to be social distancing. So I would have like packs of people out my driveway And you know, like right on the other side of my driveway. And I'm like, listen, this is I'm thinking to myself, unacceptable. Here I am working with the FDA on 2 novel therapies. This is what I'm doing while everybody else is doing whatever they're doing. I'm actually doing work on COVID, and I got a whole cluster of the community back here. Took pictures and sent it to my HOA and said, listen, this is unacceptable because this is going to spread the virus. Like, what are they doing? Like, you shut everything down, but nobody's policing, so to speak, the common areas, like the road you drive up. We have private alleys behind our houses. And so we come in the back of the house. So the driveway and that little street is an alley, and you can only go one way. So it's a perfect place to congregate, right? They were doing this for like weeks on end. And so finally they had to issue a statement because I'm like, listen, I'm working with Wolf's office. That's our governor here. I'm like, I'm going to send them a message. This is getting out of control. This is going to increase our numbers.
No, it was a hell of an experience because you can imagine we managed at the time somewhere about 130 communities. At the time, it would have been maybe 32,000 doors. And all of a sudden, you're telling everybody, go home, lock up. And you're doing that, hey, right down the street from Disney World.
Yeah.
Disney World shut down. People didn't know what to do. I remember the last day Disney closed was the Wednesday. They closed at the end of the day. Everybody went en masse, but then by the time it was empty, there was nobody there. I remember driving through the Disney property, and it was a ghost town, literal ghost town. So obviously we worked very quickly in finding ways to support our homeowners, like, hey, we're waiving late fees, we're letting you guys pay late for the next 6 months. Like, we worked with all of our boards to try to support, because many of our homeowners suddenly found themselves unable to generate an income, right? If you're on commission or hourly at restaurants or at hourly service, hey, even landscapers weren't going out there. Roofers weren't going out there because we didn't understand what's going on. We didn't go as wild as in your community and taking down basketball hoops and so on. But we did shut down pools, and it was very awkward because we don't know how this works, and we're trying to explain to people we don't know how this works, but at the same time, we have to shut down these common areas. You can't congregate at them. And they're like, but I'm just by myself sitting here. And I'm like, I feel you. I want to do exactly the same thing, but yet I can't either. I try to not be hypocritical in what I do versus what I live, right? Like, I live in an HOA. No other owner of management companies lives in an HOA. I sit on homeowner boards because I need to walk the talk, right? Live the same issues that my customers go through.
I mean, even walking around, we had to mask up on the sidewalks. You know, just
now, what was really interesting with this whole thing is Florida just the year prior had become a medical marijuana state.
Oh yeah.
And all of a sudden, our pot smell complaints went through the roof. But it was always, oh, it's 3 PM, and like my whole house smells because my neighbor. Can you please tell them? But we didn't see the classic complaints from back in the day. It's like, we're gonna call the cops. It was more of, how do I get in on it? Because we had nothing else to do. We had a lot of homeowners that were calling in and be like, how the hell is it that all of my neighbors are like smoking? The whole community smells, and these kind of things. And we actually saw a prevalence of that growth of homeowners that are actively restoring. It's not uncommon now for homeowners at a annual meeting to like show that they're the owner through, like, you know, their driver's license. Some of them are popping out their medical cards because it has most of the same information, name and address on it. So it's been an experience seeing this. You know, I'm kind of tying it back to some of what you do.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's very related.
So your program in Florida during COVID, were you guys allowed as patients to get more COVID? I mean, not more COVID, I apologize, more cannabis during the COVID time. So like, for example, in Pennsylvania, our governor issued an allowance that we could get extra cannabis just in case for this time period, just in case something happened and the world really went upside down. So like we're allowed a certain amount in our state, and it was almost, if I recall correctly, almost double we were allowed to get. And so I found myself, I'm not, I don't make edibles when I consume. It's too much work, the flour and all the stuff you have to do. But what were you going to do, right? So I normally don't buy flour. So during this time, because I was allowed to buy extra, I bought flour and I taught myself how to make butter. And then I started baking. And because what else
with the butter,
what else am I supposed to do? Like to your point, we were stuck at home. I was working and you were working, like we were working. We were blessed to be able to work, and we were grinding out because we were essential, so to speak, for the communities that we support. But how did Florida work? Did you guys get to have more than you normally would?
So the state of Florida is kind of strange because we have a population that's very pro, and frankly, they've tried to get recreational in at the last vote, but it was really corrupted, right? It was the way it was explained to me by local experts is the law was really set up for expanding the use of the current supply systems rather than being able to allow, grow at home or whatever else. So in the state of Florida, when we went into COVID, they actually didn't do anything. They left everything as it was. And then about a year ago, we were still kind of pretty much in the midst of it. They actually lowered the dosage amounts you can get a week. And now they've expanded it out. Literally, they just announced it last week. They've expanded it out. So when you go, you're no longer looking at the same amount for 30 days. Now I believe they've expanded it out to 75 days. So now you get to make your dosage needs stretch out, and the prices just keep going up. Like, for example, if you go to a local dispensary, your half gram to 1 gram cart, let's say if you're doing oils or whatever, you're talking maybe $35 to $90 in some. Flour keeps going up and up and up. Soon enough, and you already see it at local, on Reddit or so on, different groups. They're ready to go back to the old school way.
Yep.
Right? To the legal
Street.
markets. And you have serious problems here because in Florida, what they have found every time they break up some of these illegal groups is that they're lacing it with fentanyl in some cases. And that's incredibly dangerous. So I don't think most people want to take the risk, but they're not happy with the pricing or the way the legislation is going.
I was just talking to somebody. I wish I could remember. Oh, I know who it was. I had taken Christian on a little vacation before he went back to school to Charleston and Savannah. So Charleston, South Carolina, obviously is not approved for cannabis. I wasn't talking about it there because I talked about it a little bit, but not specifically this topic. I was in Savannah and somebody said something about cannabis smell. So I go, oh yeah, whatever, because for me, it's like second nature, working in the space and being a patient as well. I don't think anything of it because it's just like medicine for me. So, and for those I see, even if you're a recreational user, 9 times out of 10, the whole reason why you're using it is because it helps slow you down, which thereby means this starts to slow down and you can relax, right? So there's a medicinal reason why even the rec people use it, the recreational. So we were in Georgia and they were talking about how they tried to tie it back, this individual group, to now homeless people now congregating in the certain area of Savannah. And they believe it's because it has something to do with cannabis, because now all of a sudden they smell cannabis down the alley and all this stuff. And I'm like, hold on. first off, you don't know if the cannabis that you're smelling, it's almost like the placebo effect as it relates to clinical research, right? Because now all of a sudden it's legal, huh? And now all of a sudden you're smelling it, but you had it before, street illegal forever, right? Everybody's been doing this forever. And so now because it's legal, all of a sudden you smell it, right? And so I had to explain the differences between, street versus the medical program, because there is a very distinct difference in smell for street versus, there really is street versus the program.
The street's almost designed to be hyper smelly so that it gives you that additional effect. Like it's almost like it's designed for that old school college boy that's a stoner that wants to think all day.
Yes. And
Like
so
I have horrible back pain, lower back. Like I'm in horrible pain right now, for example. So I do the combination of the roller, the BioFreeze roller, the Move cream, and the Avon Gold cream that you sent me for the pain. And that's what goes on my lower back basically every morning. Without it, honestly, I wouldn't be able to get through my day.
No, and you have to work. I mean,
I'm driving at least 150 miles a day, bouncing around offices, properties. Then when I'm in the office, it's sitting down like this most of the time. So, and then when I'm able to get out to the gym, I'm trying to do more and more work on my back to keep reinforcing it. But it's really hard to be very mobile, even at this age, already hard to be mobile just due to prior injuries, sitting, and just lifestyle weather, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's been transformational, really helping me feel like I got a little bit more back out of me.
That's awesome. Well, I have a secret to tell you that we haven't announced yet, so it's okay if I talk about it on the podcast. Is that we've developed KT tape for Avon. So when I get some in, I'll send it to you for you to try, because what I'm going to suggest you do is put the KT tape where it hurts on your back and see how it infuses. We obviously did the KT tape that's one of the reasons why we did it, but also sports athletes really need to be able to have that ability to have the KT tape constantly dispensing medicine to them. And so with the KT tape that we use, we could put all different kinds of formulas in it. So it's not just cannabinoids and terps we could put in it. We could put, our golden nano stuff in it, all the other formulas we have. And so I'm really excited about that, because we're going to be able to be
super cool.
Right. And think about even kids, right? So, my kid wears a patch every day. He wears our PTS patch every day. It helps him with his PTS and his issues. And so when we have the KT tape, I'm going to stick the KT tape on him. And I will do a study. We plan on doing studies, KT versus the transdermal patch, to see which one actually works longer and better. Because we already know our transdermal patches last for 24 hours straight in micro doses the whole time. But the KT tape, since it's so new to us, we haven't had that opportunity yet. So that's so that's going to be the next thing. So when you were talking about your back, I thought about Adler, because he obviously has these disc issues in his back as well. He's always in pain. He's, he has an inverter. He does all this stuff, right? Takes cold showers, you name it, he does it. And so he's been putting the KT tape down his spine, and he's telling me that it works much better than the patch. So again, to go back to what I was saying about the placebo effect, now that it's legal in Georgia, all of a sudden now you're recognizing cannabis more often. I don't know if the KT works better or not yet. So that's something new. So I'll have to send you some down to try.
Yeah, I'd love it, because I have a full right knee rebuild, so it tenses up sometimes. So that would be very useful. And I'm thinking about it, like, for example, because I do have metal bolts in my knee. When I go, for example, skiing, they cool off, and after a while, it gets really, really tense. And I'm thinking something like that could actually give plenty of relief like if I wrap it around my knee, to be able to go and do even longer, so I'm not having to take breaks.
Yeah, blood flow. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Because it helps where you're having that kind of, stoppage, if you will. I don't mean to say that, your blood stops, but, when you're inflamed in areas, it just doesn't work
mhm,
as properly. So I'm curious. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm curious to see what it does. I've had multiple car accidents. Unfortunately, when I was 21, I got in my first car
mhm,
accident. I was rear-ended on 76 and I was sitting at a standstill. So it was like a direct impact. And so my SOADs were all out of whack and everything. And then also with the fibro and the hashi, I'm in pain all the time, but mine's usually leg pain. My back
mhm.
hurts a lot, but leg is really what it is. So I'm curious to try it as well to see like, is this going to help relieve me? Is it going to give me the lift I need when I'm very active doing a lot of things? Because that's another thing. We're not slow people. Like we're constantly moving. You have a little girl that's younger than my boy. And so she's running around. She's very active. She had a birthday party yesterday. I mean, she's got a lot going on. And
Mhm.
then you have all this work that you're trying to accomplish. So we're not sitting, we're moving and shaking. So it'd be interesting to see how this KT tape lifts off for
Yeah,
us for a term.
I'm definitely excited to make it to retirement mobile,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to make it to retirement to just be thrown away in a back house and good luck because everything hurts and I can't move around and there's no point in enjoying anything because I already wasted that time, right?
Right.
Um, so I'm trying to make sure that I don't make lifestyle mistakes to so I can get to that time very healthy.
Yep. I hear
That's my
you.
goal.
And at least I guess the world is a little bit more um, accepting of different ways of life as far as how you eat, what you drink, nutraceutically what you take, because in my opinion, that's what cannabinoids are. It's a nutraceutical, it's not a biologic. It's at
Hmm.
least not the space I play in. There is
Hmm.
synthetic, that's a GW Pfizer, but the space I play in is the plant space, the nutraceutical space. So I feel like people are paying more attention now, though, to what they eat and what they drink and what they do, more so than what they've done in 3 or 4 years back. You know what I mean?
Hmm. And I believe that what you're doing is it's incredibly important because not only is it breaking up a little bit of the mysticism of what it is, but it's also breaking it down to the purely medical requirements. And that's why I think building the patches, the creams, the tapes, and all of this is going to break a lot of the built up cycles that we've had for decades now on vilifying, you know, something that literally grows out of the ground as
Yep.
a weed
Yep.
that could be so incredibly helpful medicinally for everybody. If the idea, the concept that society has of a plant, for example, what do you think when you look at lavender?
Mm-hmm. That's
What
exactly
do
what
you
I was
think?
thinking.
What do you think when you
Rosemary.
look at chamomile? You look at
Mm-hmm.
chamomile and you think tea. You don't
Yeah.
think, I wonder what it tastes like if I smoke it, right?
No.
At
Right.
at some point, somebody definitely tried, and they realized this works better as a tea infuser. We get
Yep.
better benefits, and I feel like we're at the very beginning of finally unvilifying a plant that's been used for centuries, with very good effects to its societies, and be able to break it back up and start using it truly in the medical field. Because with like I always look at it when I was a kid, and definitely wasn't that long ago. I remember when they were starting the DNA project. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when they announced, and it wasn't even that long ago, when they were announcing, we have completed the DNA project. We know everything in human DNA. And it took an insane amount of money and it took forever. Now you spit in a cup, they take it over there, and you find out that your great grandfather was some random person sitting somewhere else. And it's like, look how far we've come in less than 20 years since that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we are now, and I truly believe that this administration might do something regarding on the national level as a way, We also have midterm elections. I don't think it's going to be a case now, but for the general election, it might be a very important topic. You play that card right. I can see this space in 10 years. Jesus, forget homeopathics. This is gonna take over for homeopathic medicine.
Yep.
People are gonna look at this because there is proven medical results, not random as tested in a laboratory, but actual clinical trial results of these things and what it can do. And so I look at it in a very, very positive and forward-looking manner, thinking we're just at the very beginning. And you, APA, and everybody involved, we're just seeing the beginning of what's going to come.
Mhm.
And if we're looking, like I was reading, that we're probably less than 30 years away from figuring out aging
Mhm.
and being able to reverse aging and be
Mhm.
able to give people 150, 200 years of, healthy lives. The moment we get there, this will have to become a part of it because people will refuse to put more and more chemicals and minerals and things into their bodies that they don't understand how it's functioning instead of natural things, which is what you see it over the
Was
last few
int-
years.
right. Was intended
Whole
for
foods
you on
wouldn't
this earth.
exist otherwise. Yeah,
Right.
Whole foods wouldn't exist otherwise. All these places, the organic movement wouldn't exist if people didn't realize, oh crap, we probably shouldn't pump our animals full of chemicals to make them bigger and fatter and tastier. And we probably shouldn't do these things to our plants so that they always grow bigger, fatter, and tastier as well. And I think some people are waking up like, "Ooh, we probably put too much in our bodies," and you see it in cancer rate, in mental health rate, in
Mhm.
everything. Like, and it's over and over. So I'm excited for the space because I think it's going to open up and more with this new generation that's more open-minded for it, that are kind of expecting it at this point.
Yep.
So I'm super excited about what's to come from it because I'm like, in the future, I might be able to put an actual cream in my back that really takes all the pain away
Exactly.
because it's gone through this and it might be even adjusted to my DNA basics on
Hmm.
here's the exact cannabinoid that matches your DNA for
Your
pain.
endocannabinoid, yeah, system.
I know we're only a few years away from that. And it's really exciting having been in the pharma space where all of that was being ignored or looking at how different chemicals will react and seeing, wow, there's this whole new pharma space that's literally being born right now that in 20, 30 years could be the same size as for in pharma. So that's part of what I love from all of this, seeing the advancement.
Yep, I'm excited for where we're going to go with all of it, especially since the things that we're working on, together as all the companies spread across that support this movement. It's not easy. It's easier than when I got in it 6 years ago. It's so much different, now it's like, whatever, I just kind of bob along and, I do what I do. And, everybody has a story about cannabis and, whether it helped somebody they know. And I think, though, is that now this really, we have to pay attention to the educational aspects that are coming out with respect to cannabis. What's really the truth? What's really not? I just worked on an article for Marijuana Times about this topic, specifically in the CBD space, because a lot of times what happens is these CBD companies pump out stuff that they think is helpful to the consumer, because at that point they're consumers. They're buying stuff on a website, just like you could buy a weight loss pill on a website. It's a consumer. They're not a patient at that point. So the FDA, though, looks at it as they're a patient, not a consumer. So when you put things on your website about studies that have happened in the space that you legitimately found, clinicaltrials.gov or wherever you found them, or research paper that you came across on LinkedIn, you can't put that on your website because it makes it look like to the patient. So like our patients at APA, some of them would believe that in fact this company did this clinical research when if you look at it closely enough, you'll figure out who did the research and you'll realize it wasn't them. But the FDA looks at that as false claims.
Mhm.
So there needs to be more real, legit clinical research. And these other people that are trying to legalize cannabis in their states, and they want to talk about how Johnny has epilepsy and cannabis, he's been able to get cannabis through whatever state and da da da. And now, Johnny needs this in whatever state it is they're trying to legalize. It's not just about that personal story. It's about the whole ecosystem of the cannabinoids and the endocannabinoid system. That's what's still being missed. That's why still things aren't getting legalized in states, because they're missing, Georgia used my white paper I wrote 2 years ago with Dr. Don, or longer, about the Pennsylvania program. They used our paper to legalize the state of Georgia because it was real-time evidence, and it came in through the Cannabot, which is an electronic tool. So how can you say that, this is a validated tool? It wasn't some Excel spreadsheet we put together and we made stuff up. It was real. It was a study.
Well, that's a great leeway into being able to market it much broaderly out there, because there are an insane amount of doctors that want to be able to look into it, and they're almost held back by pharma connections, reps,
stigma,
or worse, the thing that plagues our society, politicization of everything, right? Where you can't have a thought that's your own because it's whatever this politician or that politician might think. So you need to adjust your own moral compass to whatever politician's thinking. And we're seeing that problem everywhere, right? Every country, every group, every social group, we're seeing this problem, the hyper politicization of everything. And that's why I love your Georgia example, because they based on science to help push it through. But as we know, in a lot of the country and in many countries, they won't care about the science,
right?
Because the science, frankly, doesn't even have to exist. They don't care for it.
Yep.
And the thing is, in my opinion, that is the last major hurdle to overcome. Those who believe in nature, but might not believe fully in all of the science. How do we marry that in between to get them on board so they don't become, the hassle and the wall to break down,
right?
When they should really be a partner if they believe in the nature and the beauty of everything. And there's the nature and beauty and the creation of a plant that can have so many insane benefits to society and people. So why not investigate it further? That's how I think about it. Very pragmatic.
I agree. And, that was one of the reasons why we built the Tele-Monitoring system. It's so that we can perpetually monitor patients where they are, so that we can help them, so that doctors understand what's going on with them. So these are for patients that are cannabis and non-cannabis patients. We are able to monitor all of them. The proof is in the data. So at the end of the day, once we have all this information coming in, we'll be able to see the benefits of cannabinoids and terps and things of that nature, so that we can actually help educate people on true valid points, rather than what, hey, Johnny over here has epilepsy and he takes Bubba Kush. I mean, listen, stop with this too. Like the whole Bubba Kush, lemon G, this and that. This is not medical terms. It's got to stop. If we want to progress this plant to where it needs to go medicinally, we've got to stop talking like that. This isn't street talk. This is, hey, I take flower, I take Rick Simpson oil, RSL, I take tincture, I take capsules. We've got to start more like mainstream meds, because if we don't, no one's going to listen. And they're going to be like, I can't tell my little child to take Bubba. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. Like, stop.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, and it's part of the whole thing. We look at it; it's the cultural bias to this whole thing. Everybody still thinks of it as there's the person rolling a joint, rather than here's the cream, here's the oil, here's the patch, here's the KT tape, here's all of these actual medical things that
Yep.
support and improve. And we got to remember, more and more of these medical things lose more and more of the psychoactive effect, because that's what people are trying to avoid when they're looking at the medical aspect for some of the things, like
Right.
pain and so on.
Right.
And I think if we can better explain that separation into what is recreational, what is medical, it will help break down some of those barriers. But it's definitely a challenge. But we are in a growing society of more and more open-mindedness into other solutions.
I think so too. And I think, I mean, if just to tie back to how we started off, because we're going to have to end soon, COVID taught us a lot, right? You brought that up, in the property aspect of how you work every day, and how all these patients now have cards and we're exposed, and everybody seems happier now because they have access to medical cannabis. So their anxieties are a little bit better. I think, that COVID has taught us a lot about what cannabis can really do. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a lot of studies that were coming out relative to COVID-19 and dropping the viral load and things of that nature. So
I remember seeing those, yes.
Because we were thinking about pushing out a patch specifically for COVID. I formulated it, and then we were like, let's hold off on this because there's so much that we already work on. And people were taking the Immune Boost patch anyway. And we didn't say, oh, this is for COVID. People just bought it and they tried it, and it is what it is. If it worked, it great. So I think the space has a lot of growing up to do, but there's a lot of education that falls back to organizations like ours, APA, where we have to make sure we do things by the book and we educate people on the medicinal properties of the plant.
Yeah. And I don't think we're too far off.
Nope.
I think between social media, a lot of what we see in the media these days, it's a lot more open.
I think
a lot
so.
more back down to reality, and it's trying to break. It's no longer dazed and confused. It's now, hey, here's this high performing CEO. Here's this housewife. Here is Tony from down the street. And if people even actually stepped into a dispensary, they would see that it's everyday people trying to find solution to their pains or issues.
That's right. That's what it's all about. And I think, I'm so happy that we're in this together as we try to help educate people and show them, the benefits of this in the proper way, rather than making some sort of claim on something we don't know about.
Well, the good thing is that my homeowners are not going to be getting a random violation for it, because none of the documents actually state anything against it. And as I say, nothing in the office, nothing like this. We are a professional office space, all my employees, but our drug and use policy states that if they are medical patients, etc., you get to follow whatever year it is, but it cannot affect your workday. So I try to bring what I preach into how we work.
Yep.
I believe very thoroughly in you got to walk the talk.
That's right.
And that's what I try to do every day.
That's awesome.
As busy as we are, but it's for us all.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that, because also on every podcast what I shoot, and I didn't even tell you this because I knew that you would glean some pearls of wisdom. I always make sure that we teach some sort of lesson to people, in every one of these podcasts, regardless of who I'm talking to, whether it's an artist, a doctor, a real estate mogul executive like yourself, a patient, whatever. The point is, it's important to teach people so they get something, back. And so thank you for sharing that at the end, because it was perfect. I mean, there's plenty of things that you discussed that are lessons, but I really appreciate you hitting that off at the end for me like that.
Anytime. I'm happy. I'm a wealth of sharing knowledge. I don't believe in keeping anything I know to myself. There's always somebody that can use it.
That's right. And we don't know everything, so, and we're here to learn too, we learn stuff every day.
I'll leave everybody with one last tidbit. It's everything you ever learn in your life, you have to hear it from someone.
Mm-hmm.
So listen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Listen to people.
Listen.
You might not agree, but you'll learn the why or
That's
the
it.
how.
Yep.
And I think that's more valuable than knowing the what.
That's absolutely right. Well, thank you so much, Jose, for joining me today. I really
Anytime, my
appreciate
friend.
I really appreciated you. And as we always say, remember, we are the same. I am Christina DiArcangelo. Thank you for joining us today.